everyone, Life Coach Carissa here. I am back with you today because it's that time of year again. Yes, back to school is upon us. Whether you're happy about that or disappointed about that, you're allowed to feel everything, okay? And you can change your feeling from day to day. It's all right. But because it's back to school time, I thought it was fitting to send out a message that ties in with back to school. Now, I know some of my followers may not be a mom or a dad or a guardian of school-aged kids, and maybe you won't relate to this back to school topic. But if that is the case, maybe you know someone that this information could be helpful to, and you could maybe tell them about it or share it with them, okay? So back to school can really encompass so much for the parents, the kids, grandparents, teachers. So many individuals are impacted by back to school routines that are starting back up as we speak. Okay, so my husband and I only have one left in school. Our son, who is 21, is currently in the working world, and our daughter is going to be a freshman this year, and she's starting back next week. It got me to thinking about all the things that we as parents may encounter with our kids. I mean, with every age, there's something new, right? I am going to focus this message on the back to school battles. And I was really hesitant to name it this because I don't want to make it sound scary by using the word battle, but I want to be real here for anyone that is in the thick of things and not maybe having an easy go of getting their kids ready for back to school because it happens, right? And if we're not in that place yet, there may come a day when we are. And the better prepared we can be for it, the better decisions that we will make on how to handle it. So again, not trying to be over negative or scary because back to school can be a very fun time for many individuals. But like I said, there's usually something underlying that maybe doesn't feel so good about it. And I think it's good that we bring a light to that and talk about it. Okay. So in this video, I wanted to touch on a couple things. One side I want to talk about is what the parents are feeling. And the other is that I want to talk about what the struggles are for our kids in the various age groups, right? Because these battles can vary depending on the age of your child. You know, maybe your child is starting preschool and your battle, so to speak, will be helping them let go of you while they are in this new environment with new faces and new experiences, right? Kind of scary for them. It's equally tough on the parents as well as the child, but it is a normal phase of growing up. You know, or maybe your child is a sophomore or junior and they have lost their love and excitement for learning, and you are concerned about how they will get through another year. Or maybe you're just trying to get your kids back on a school routine, you know, something different from the relaxed days of summer where they can sleep in with no alarm clocks. You know, no matter where you are on the spectrum, these battles do exist. And they are real for all of us, okay? So the point I am making is that each and every parent may experience something different in the way of a back to school battle with their kids. And sometimes this battle can reflect back on what sort of place the parent is in. You know, gosh, for example, when my son was in high school, I was in a very stressful time of my life with my work and my parents, and I had nothing left to offer him when he was experiencing his own battles, right? I had no emotional bandwidth to offer him, and therefore he had to try to cope on his own without an ally. So where are you at on the emotional spectrum? Are you calm and you have the capacity to handle challenges and upsets brought on by your children and their new experiences? Or are you hanging on tightly to everything, falling into place and keeping the ship full speed ahead? You know, that's where I was at, right? It's just really good to know this. There's no right or wrong. Whatever place we are in is the reality we are in. We have just so much to gain by knowing it and thinking about it ahead of time. So if you are the one hanging on, let's start by trying to get you feeling a little lighter about all of this. And maybe even a bit more emotionally prepared so that we can do our best to be a calm in the storm for our kids. I saw a study on research.com where middle schoolers shared their top concerns. They were to get good grades, to look good, and to fit in socially. And I thought, man, how many of us adults would say, yes, sign me up? I loved middle school and I would love to go back. It's doubtful, right? I mean, this study also shared that 75% of US teens in high school they feel the feelings of anger and sadness and fear and boredom and stress while they're in school. So, what tools do they have to cope with this on a daily basis? Some options that they maybe are going to consider are not so great, right? They might go within, they might retreat, they might try new things that maybe aren't in their best interest. And then, after high school, we aren't done because this continues into college. 40% of college students, it shared that they are not adequately rested out of 5 out of the 7 days of a week. They're lacking sleep, which just adds stress to their brains and bodies. What does stress do? It interferes with the ability to make solid decisions. So what does all this tell us? Okay, our kids are trying to do the best they know how. From early on through college, and then this actually continues into adulthood, every child is different. And it would be negligent of me to think that my kids are just like me and they see things just like I do, right? They have their own view of the world and their experiences. And it won't be the same for each child either if you have multiple children. So each of us is so unique in our experience and our view. And the more we can honor and accept their individual experience, the stronger our ability to communicate with them will be. I do believe that we have this thought error that stress is only for adults. I wholeheartedly believe this is not true. Our kids are presenting symptoms of stress, whether we like it or not. The more flexible and patient that we can be for our kids, the better skills they will build for handling their own variety of stress. How many of us would say that we're good at handling our own stress, let alone supporting our kids through theirs, right? We weren't trained on this. We weren't given the proper tools in our own, childhood experience. So we have to be intentional about this, okay? So I've talked a lot about the potential for problems and battles, but what I want to do is give you some key takeaways to just be mindful of as your kids head back to school, okay? Number one, please, 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 parents and caregivers, watch your own emotions. Notice when they are hanging out on the positive spectrum or the negative spectrum. Describe how you're feeling on a daily basis to yourself. Today, I feel anxious. I feel worried. I feel concerned. I feel frustrated. I'm on edge. I'm angry. Or today, I'm optimistic, confident, content, and peaceful. The more we can be in touch with our feelings and name the emotion, the better off we are. Because the more we learn that we can feel our feelings, good and bad, and it doesn't have to dictate how we respond and react, we can model this to our kids. This is something they need to see. The parent experiencing a spectrum of emotions and working through that in healthy ways. My daughter said to me, Mom, do you think you have all the answers? How can you, put this information out there? And I'm like, you know what? No, I don't. I think people want someone who's real. And if you want someone who's real, that's me, because I've been in the trenches. I've been in the dark times, and I have worked to dig myself out of it. And you know what I've figured out? The battles with my kids often have nothing to do with them. It starts with me. I've had to do the work. I've had to become aware, and I've had to make the change. All right. So number 2, work to keep the lines of communication open. Don't smother them with a ton of questions after school. Just let them know that you're there should they want to share anything. Rather than, did you have a good day as soon as you see them? How about asking, let's all share how our day went at dinner. Or I'd love to hear about everyone's day, the good and the bad. Tell me all about it. All too often, I believe as parents, we are wanting to hear something good from our kids as soon as we see them to tell us about how their day was so that we can breathe a sigh of relief. And notice if that's the energy you have. Maybe it's not. But if you do, and you're anxious as to what their answer is going to be, or what they look like, or what their mood seems to be, check yourself. What would you need to be thinking and feeling to be okay with whatever they share as an experience? Can you hold space for that? Why not? Number 3, don't be so rigid and jump to conclusions. I know this because I was there. I wanted perfection from my kids because that meant I was doing a good job, and it stroked my ego, right? The ego was in charge. But a healthy life is so much more than grades and attendance and how well they are in sports. It's actually how well they can handle the ups and downs of life. So let's stop trying to save our kids from feeling discomfort and wanting only the best for them. And we try to set it up that way because it sounds admirable, but it can be so toxic and overwhelming with the expectation and pressure that we place on them. Sure, they may get by for a while dealing with it and seem fine, but over time, it can present issues that will come to a head later on. And number 4, spend time thinking about the changes your child is going through and what would be the best approach for you to take in the various situations. This really applies to all ages. Think about this. If you are a mom, do you recall when you were pregnant and you could follow along with every stage of your baby's growth? I can remember with both of my kids getting those emails every week that was telling me the baby is now this size of an eggplant and this is what's happening in their developing body. I really think that we as parents could benefit greatly from receiving updates like this ongoing. I know this may seem silly, but it's so true. As parents, we get so wrapped up in our own responsibilities and all that we need to handle. And so being aware and really in tune of what changes our kids are going through at every step of the way can be so difficult to remain tethered to. So like if you go and search, you can find tons of content that will break down developmental milestones for every age group. They share things such as, what am I like at this stage? What do I need at this stage? It typically, you can find this for each month up to a year, and then you can find it at different age intervals. So for example, with my daughter being 14, if I researched her, I would see things like, I'm changing so fast, my mind, body, and emotions. One day I can be as responsible and cooperative as an adult, and the next day I may respond like a 7-year-old. Planning beyond one day at a time can be a challenge for me. One minute I'm chatty and enthusiastic, and the next minute I am silent and gloomy. I don't want to be teased. I need my privacy. They need patience. They crave for us to be the one steady constant in their life because their whole world has sort of been disrupted by all this growth and change, not to mention all of the outside influence and pressures. Okay. So that's just an example of what I might find for my 14-year-old. And when I read that information and put it into my brain, can you see how it puts things in perspective for me? It takes me out of my own little bubble, and it reminds me that so much of what's going on for her right now has very little to do with me. And so I don't need to get my feelings hurt. I don't need to be overly sensitive to her tone or her mood. It will do me no good to have extremely high expectations in areas that she's still trying to figure out. It doesn't do me any good to try to give her the answer to everything because she has this internal desire to figure out things on her own and to make her own determinations. So my point in all of this is, this was a long tip, but it is the last one, but really think about it. Do some research on what to expect when your child is developing and the phase that they're in, and use that information that you find as tools to put in your toolbox. The same tools that we perfect when they are babies, toddlers, and tweens are not going to work anymore as they move from teenagers to adults. So a little bit of effort on our part will go a long way in cultivating a healthy relationship that maintains communication. I always repeat this quote from Mark Gregston from Parenting Today's Teens. It's, if you have a discipline problem, then you have a relationship problem. And I can tell you that when I was in the thick of it with my son, I was not taking any real responsibility. I was putting all the blame squarely on him for being a teenager. And so when I really digested that quote, it made me realize that, you know what, I need to step up and I need to do a little work. I can't just go from the babies to the toddlers and just expect all this to fall into place. I do need to put forth some effort and figure out what's going on in my child's life from a developmental stage and really invest some time in it. All right, so that is what I have for you today. Take it one day at a time and just be present for your kids, no matter what age they're at, as they embark on their back to school journey. Have a little grace, a lot of patience. We will all have our own version of a back to school battle. Okay. If we can work on being proactive and maintain a low emotional temperature, we can greatly improve the outlook of things. All right, everyone. Thank you for listening and investing time in yourself, your family, and your overall well-being. We've got this, parents. Convincing myself of that too. And if you ever feel like you could use support with the battles you're having with your children, I am always available to discuss how I can help. I have free consultations that you can sign up for on my website, no obligation, no cost. And you'll be surprised what we can accomplish in one session with getting you on a different path and not feeling stuck. You can reach me at lifecoachingwithcarissa.com. All right, take care of yourselves, and I will see you next time.